The massive space station hung in the void like a giant metal flower. Its curved arms stretched out in all directions, each one longer than most starships. Bright lights dotted its surface, marking docking bays and observation decks. This was Neutral Point 7, the place where different species came to talk instead of fight. Commander Lee Hanna stepped off the transport shuttle and into the station's main corridor. Her boots made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. She wore the standard Terran Defense Corps diplomatic uniform, a simple navy blue jacket with silver buttons and matching pants. On her collar sat two small silver bars that showed her rank. The Earth emblem on her shoulder was no bigger than a coin. Behind her walked Captain Kim Dae-ho, carrying a small briefcase. He also wore the same plain uniform, though his rank marks were different. Both humans looked very ordinary compared to the strange beings moving through the corridor around them. A group of tall, lizard-like creatures passed by first. Their scales were dark green and their eyes glowed yellow in the station's artificial light. They wore elaborate armor decorated with spikes and colorful ribbons. Each one carried weapons that looked more like art pieces than tools of war. Next came a cluster of insect-like beings. They had 4 arms each and moved with quick, jerky motions. Their carapaces shined like polished metal, and complex patterns were carved into their shells. Tiny gems sparkled from these carvings, catching the light as they walked. The humans looked very plain next to all this display. Hanna walked calmly through the corridor, following the signs that pointed toward Conference Room Alpha. She had studied the station's layout many times during the long journey here. Every turn, every exit, every security checkpoint was already mapped in her mind. The conference room was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that it disappeared into shadows. Around the central table sat representatives from 12 different species. Each group had brought their finest clothing and most impressive technology. General Kolthan of the Vextar Empire dominated one side of the table. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with dark red scales that looked like armor plating. Golden rings pierced his neck frills, and his claws were decorated with precious metals. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. On the opposite side sat Hive Queen Zixara, surrounded by her drone attendants. Her exoskeleton was painted with intricate blue and silver patterns that seemed to move in the light. 4 delicate arms gestured constantly as she communicated with her companions through a series of clicks and whistles. Other beings filled the remaining seats. There were the crystalline shard folk, whose bodies looked like living gemstones. The gaseous void swimmers floated in special containment suits. Even the plant-like grove tenders had come, their root systems carefully maintained in portable soil containers. When Hanna and Dae-ho entered the room, conversation stopped. Every eye, sensor, and sensory organ turned toward them. General Kolthan was the first to speak. His massive head tilted as he examined the 2 humans. These are the representatives Earth sends to negotiate with the Galactic Council. His voice carried across the room like thunder. I expected warriors. Instead, they send clerks in children's clothing. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled delegates. The Hive Queen's clicking sounds took on what sounded like a laughing rhythm. Several of the other species made their own versions of amused noises. Look at those uniforms, continued another delegate, this one from the machine species known as the Network Collective. So plain, so boring. Do humans have no sense of proper dress? Perhaps they are too poor to afford real military attire, suggested one of the grove tenders, its voice like wind through leaves. Captain Dae-ho's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained silent. Hanna had given him clear instructions about how to behave during these meetings. Hanna herself showed no reaction to the comments. She walked calmly to the 2 empty chairs reserved for the human delegation. Her movements were smooth and controlled, like someone who had complete confidence in their surroundings. We appreciate the warm welcome, she said in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, but somehow carried to every corner of the room. Shall we begin the negotiations? General Kolthan's eyes narrowed. Begin? Child, do you even understand why? You were brought here? This is not a negotiation between equals. This is us informing you of new realities. The lizard-like general stood to his full imposing height. His armor clinked and rattled with each movement. The Galactic Council has decided that humanity has expanded too quickly into space. Your kind takes resources that belong to older, more established civilizations. Hive Queen Zixara joined the conversation, her translated voice coming through speakers around the room. Your species shows no proper respect for those who ruled the stars before you arrived. You build colonies where you have no permission to build. You mine asteroids that should belong to us. Other delegates nodded or made their species equivalent gestures of agreement. Hana listened to each complaint with the same calm expression. She folded her hands on the table in front of her and waited for them to finish. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked when the room fell quiet again. General Colton smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Not proposing. Demanding. 3 of your newest colony worlds will be transferred to Galactic Council control immediately. Your mining operations in the Outer Rim will cease within 30 days, and your pathetic Earth defense fleet will be reduced to half its current size." "The Council is being generous," added another delegate. "We could simply take what we want, by force." "Your ships are primitive compared to ours," said the Network Collective representative. "Your weapons are toys. Your defenses are paper walls." More laughter echoed through the chamber. The assembled aliens seemed to find great amusement in humanity's supposed weakness. Hana listened to every word without changing expression. When the room grew quiet again, she tilted her head slightly to one side. It was a small movement, barely noticeable. "Should I switch into something more lethal?" she asked quietly. The question was spoken so softly that several delegates had to lean forward to hear it properly. General Colthan's laughter boomed across the room. "More lethal? Little human. What could you possibly wear that would be more dangerous than that ridiculous costume?" Even Hive Queen Zixara's clicking took on an amused tone. "Perhaps she has a scarier uniform in her luggage." The mockery continued for several minutes. Delegates made jokes about human fashion sense and military capability. They seemed to find the idea of the small, plainly dressed woman being threatening to be the funniest thing they had heard in years. Through it all, Hana sat quietly with that same slight smile on her face. Captain Deho watched her carefully, recognizing something in her expression that the aliens completely missed. When the laughter finally died down, Hana spoke again. "I'll need some time to consult with my superiors about your generous offer. Perhaps we could reconvene tomorrow morning?" "Of course," General Colthan said with obvious satisfaction. "Take all the time you need to accept the inevitable. We are patient conquerors." "Tomorrow then," Hana said, standing smoothly. "I'll make sure to dress appropriately for the occasion." Commander Hana walked through the station's corridors with the same calm pace as before. Captain Deho followed 2 steps behind, his face carefully neutral. Other beings in the hallway stepped aside as they passed, some still chuckling about the diplomatic meeting. The human quarters were located in Section C Level 7. The rooms were small but comfortable, designed to accommodate many different species. Hana pressed her palm against the door scanner and waited for the soft beep that meant it recognized her. Once inside, Deho finally spoke. "Commander, they're planning something. That wasn't a negotiation. It was theater." Hana moved to the small desk and activated her personal communication device. The screen showed several encrypted messages waiting for her attention. "I know, Captain. The question is what they're really after." She opened the first message. It came from Major Park Jin-woo, who served as the station's human security liaison. His words were brief but concerning. "Alien fleet movements detected in surrounding sectors. Recommend immediate departure." The second message was longer. It came from Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Seo Min-ji, who had arrived on the station 3 days earlier disguised as a maintenance worker. Her report was detailed and troubling. "Commander," the message began, "I've been monitoring alien communications since arrival. The negotiations were always intended to fail. This is a trap designed to demonstrate overwhelming force before a major offensive against human space." Hana read the entire report twice. According to Minji's intelligence gathering, The aliens had been moving warships into position around the neutral station for over a week. They had also been jamming long-range communications to prevent the human delegation from calling for help. "How bad is it?" Daeho asked, reading her expression. Before Hana could answer, her door chime sounded. The security screen showed Major Park Jin-woo standing in the hallway. His usual relaxed demeanor was gone, replaced by obvious tension. "Come in quickly," Hana said, opening the door. Park stepped inside and immediately began scanning the room with a small electronic device. "Checking for listening devices," he explained. "The aliens have been very interested in human activities since you arrived." The device remained silent, indicating the room was clean. Park relaxed slightly. "Commander, we have a serious problem. I've been monitoring station security feeds, and the alien delegations have been receiving regular updates from their fleets. As of 2 hours ago, there are 47 combat vessels in this system." 47? Daeho repeated. "Against our one transport ship?" "It gets worse," Park continued. "They're not just here for show. Long-range sensors detected weapon systems charging on multiple ships. They're preparing for actual combat." Hana processed this information while staring out the small porthole in her quarters. Stars dotted the darkness, looking peaceful and distant. Somewhere out there, hostile ships were moving into attack positions. "What about communications?" she asked. "Still jammed," Park confirmed. "They're using a wide-spectrum interference field. Nothing gets through except short-range transmissions within the station. So Earth doesn't know what's happening here. Not unless Lieutenant Min-ji found a way around the jamming." As if summoned by their conversation, Hana's communication device chimed again. A new message had arrived, this one from Min-ji with an updated timestamp. "I've identified the source of the communications jamming," the message read. "It's coming from 3 ships positioned at specific coordinates around the station. However, I discovered something interesting. The jamming field has gaps in its coverage that rotate every 47 minutes. During these gaps, tight beam transmissions are possible." The message included detailed technical specifications and timing charts. Min-ji had been very thorough in her reconnaissance. "She's good," Park said, reading over Hana's shoulder. "With this information, we could get a message through to Earth." "What message would we send?" Daeho asked. "By the time help arrives, this will all be over." Before anyone could respond, the room's communication system crackled to life. "General," Colton's voice filled the small space. "Attention, human delegation. Your presence is requested in Conference Room Alpha immediately. We have additional terms to discuss." The transmission ended with an ominous click. "They're moving faster than expected," Hana said. "Major Park, can you escort us to the conference room? I want someone monitoring station security while we're in there." "Of course, Commander." The walk back to Conference Room Alpha felt different this time. The corridors seemed darker, and the other beings they encountered watched them with obvious interest. Word had spread quickly through the station that something significant was happening. Inside the conference room, the alien delegates had arranged themselves differently. Instead of sitting around the circular table, they now stood in a semicircle, facing the human chairs. The arrangement made their superior numbers more obvious and intimidating. General Kolthan dominated the center of the group. His armor seemed even more elaborate than before, with additional ceremonial weapons hanging from his belt. Hive Queen Zixara flanked him on one side, her forearms moving in complex patterns that suggested agitation or excitement. "Humans," Kolthan began without preamble, "we have reconsidered our previous offer. The Galactic Council has decided that humanity poses a greater threat than initially assessed." His yellow eyes fixed on Hana with predatory intensity. "Your species has shown disturbing tendencies toward rapid expansion and resource acquisition. Left unchecked, you could become a significant problem for established civilizations." "What are you proposing?" Hana asked, taking her seat despite the intimidating display. "New terms," said the Network Collective representative. "Complete surrender of 3 colony worlds as previously discussed. Additionally, massive tribute payments to compensate for resources you have illegally claimed. And finally, the immediate dismantling of your entire defense fleet." "Your pathetic ships will be scrapped," added another delegate. The materials will be distributed among more deserving species. Hive Queen Zixara stepped forward, her translated voice carrying a tone of false reasonableness. We are not unreasonable, conquerors. Humans will be allowed to remain on Earth and your oldest colonies. You will serve as a client species under Galactic Council protection. Protection, Deho said quietly. That's generous. Several aliens missed the sarcasm in his voice, nodding as if he had complimented them. General Colthan smiled his sharp-toothed smile. We are prepared to be merciful rulers. However, this offer has limitations. You have exactly 72 hours to communicate your acceptance to Earth and begin compliance. 72 hours, Hana repeated. And if we refuse? Then we will demonstrate why refusal is not a viable option. The general said. Your transport ship makes a convenient first example. After that, we proceed to Earth itself. The threat hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Every alien delegate watched the humans carefully, waiting for signs of fear or surrender. Hana maintained her calm expression throughout the entire presentation. When the aliens finished speaking, she folded her hands on the table and appeared to consider their words carefully. I'll need to consult with Earth before providing a response, she said finally. This decision is above my authority level. Naturally, Colthan said with obvious satisfaction. However, I suggest you strongly recommend acceptance. The alternative would be most unpleasant for your species. I'll also need time to prepare proper attire for tomorrow's final session, Hana added casually. Assuming we're meeting again, tomorrow morning? Of course. We want you properly dressed when you surrender. The aliens found this amusing. Several made their species equivalent of laughter. Hana stood smoothly, Deho rising beside her. Until tomorrow, then. As they left the conference room, none of the aliens noticed the small smile that played at the corners of Hana's mouth. That evening, Commander Hana returned to her quarters alone. Captain Deho had been assigned to monitor alien communications from the security center, while Major Park Jin-woo coordinated with Lieutenant Minji about the communication gaps in the jamming field. Hana sealed her door and activated the privacy shields. The small room became completely isolated from outside scanning or listening devices. Only then did she move to her personal storage locker. The locker required 3 different security checks. First, her handprint on the scanner. Second, a retinal scan that verified her identity. Third, a voice recognition system that required her to speak a specific code phrase, Authorization Omega 77. Charlie, she said clearly. The locker opened with a soft hydraulic hiss. Inside was a sealed case that looked nothing like standard diplomatic equipment. The case was matte black, with warning labels in multiple EO languages. Biometric locks secured every edge, and a small display showed that the contents remained at optimal storage temperature. Hana lifted the case carefully and placed it on her bed. The biometric scanner required her thumb, index finger, and palm print simultaneously. When the locks disengaged, she opened the case slowly. Captain Deho arrived 20 minutes later, using his security override to enter when she didn't answer the door chime. He found her sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at the open case. Commander, I wanted to update you on the communication situation, he began, then stopped when he saw what she was holding. In her hands was a garment that looked nothing like the diplomatic uniform she had worn all day. The material appeared to be some kind of advanced synthetic fiber that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Silver threading ran through the fabric in complex patterns that hurt to look at directly. Is that what I think it is? Deho asked quietly. Special Operations Command dress uniform, Hana confirmed. Full combat specification. She held up the jacket for him to examine. What had looked like silver threading was actually microcircuitry woven directly into the fabric. The collar bore rank insignia that was very different from her diplomatic pins. I've never seen anything like this, Deho said. How long have you been Special Ops? 15 years, Hana replied. The diplomatic corps assignment was my cover. Identity. Every human diplomat sent to situations like this is actually a Special Operations commander. As she spoke, she began removing components from the case. There was body armor that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. weapon attachments that could interface with standard equipment, communication gear that was generations beyond anything the station's systems could detect. The uniform I wore today wasn't about diplomacy, she continued. It was about giving our enemies a false sense of security. Let them think we're weak. Let them reveal their true intentions. A soft chime indicated someone else was requesting entry. Hana checked the security monitor and saw 3 more members of their delegation standing in the hallway. She opened the door to admit them. Sergeant Yu Tae-min entered first. He was a compact man with observant eyes who had posed as a technical specialist during the negotiations. Behind him came communications specialist Choi So-young, whose official role had been diplomatic secretary. Last was navigator Lee Jun-ho, supposedly their transportation coordinator. All 3 stopped when they saw the contents of the case spread across Hana's bed. Orders, Commander? Taemin asked simply. Full mission briefing, Hana replied. Close the door and activate security protocols. Jun-ho sealed the entrance and activated the room's complete isolation system. No sound, signal, or scanning attempt could penetrate their privacy now. The diplomatic mission was always secondary, Hana began. Our primary objective was intelligence gathering and threat assessment. Based on what we've learned, the alien coalition poses an immediate danger to human space. She activated her personal datapad, which projected a 3-dimensional map of the local star system. Red dots marked the positions of alien warships. 47 combat vessels, she continued. Coordinated jamming operations. Detailed intelligence about human colony locations and defense capabilities. This was planned months in advance. So-young studied the display carefully. They've been watching us longer than we thought. Much longer, Hana agreed. Lieutenant Minji's reconnaissance uncovered communication records dating back 6 months. The aliens have been planning this operation since before we established our newest colonies. What about Earth? Daeho asked. Do they know what's happening here? Hana smiled for the first time since entering her quarters. Earth has known about this mission from the beginning. The 72-hour deadline wasn't for humanity's surrender. It was the time needed for our fleet to get into position. She manipulated the holographic display, zooming out to show a much larger area of space. New icons appeared, scattered throughout the surrounding systems. The Terran Defense Fleet has been moving assets into this region for 3 weeks, she explained. Every trade convoy and exploration vessel that passed through here was actually a military ship using stealth technology. The others stared at the display in amazement. What had seemed like an impossible situation was actually an elaborate trap. How many ships? Taemin asked. Enough, Hana replied. The aliens wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, they're about to learn why we don't make easy targets. She closed the holographic display and returned her attention to the equipment spread across her bed. Tomorrow morning we return to negotiations, but not as diplomats. What are our orders? So-young asked. Standard Special Operations Protocol for hostile first contact scenarios, Hana said. Document everything. Identify key military assets. Prepare for immediate extraction if necessary. She picked up the combat uniform's jacket and held it up to the light. The microcircuitry glowed faintly as it activated in response to her touch. And most importantly, she continued, show them exactly what humanity looks like when we stop, pretending to be harmless. Jun-ho was examining some of the technical equipment from the case. Commander, some of this gear is classified above my clearance level. Just what exactly is your real rank? Hana's smile became slightly predatory. Tomorrow you'll find out. She began carefully laying out the components of her true uniform. The transformation from diplomat to soldier was about to begin. Get some rest, she told the others. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day for our alien friends. As her team filed out of the room, Hana continued preparing her equipment. The plain diplomatic uniform lay discarded on a chair, no longer needed. Outside her porthole, alien warships moved through space like predators circling their prey. They had no idea that the prey was about to show its teeth. The real negotiations would begin in the morning. The next morning brought a different atmosphere to Neutral Point 7. Word had spread through the station that something significant would happen during the final negotiation session. Beings from various species gathered in the observation galleries above Conference Room Alpha, eager to witness humanity's expected surrender. General Colthon arrived early, accompanied by an even larger entourage than before. His ceremonial armor gleamed under the room's bright lights, and his weapons were displayed prominently. He wanted to look appropriately intimidating when the humans capitulated. Hive Queen Zixara entered with her full court of drone attendants. They arranged themselves in precise formations around her chair, creating an impressive display of organized power. Her translated communications equipment had been upgraded overnight to ensure every word of the human surrender would be recorded properly. The other alien delegates took their positions with similar ceremony. Each species had brought their finest representatives, expecting to share in the glory of defeating the upstart humans. The scheduled meeting time came and passed. The human delegation was late. Perhaps they are having difficulty composing their surrender document, suggested one delegate with amusement. Or maybe they are arguing among themselves about who will deliver the bad news to Earth, added another. General Colthon checked his chronometer impatiently. Humans apparently have no respect for punctuality either. The conference room doors opened exactly 15 minutes after the scheduled time, but instead of the plainly dressed diplomats from previous days, a single figure entered that made every conversation stop instantly. Commander Hana walked into the room wearing full military dress uniform. Gone was the simple navy blue diplomatic outfit. In its place was the black and silver armor of Terran Special Operations Command. The material seemed to absorb light, creating an almost supernatural presence in the brightly lit room. Her rank insignia was completely different now. Instead of the modest diplomatic pins, her collar bore the complex markings of a Special Operations Colonel. Combat ribbons decorated her chest in neat rows, telling stories of conflicts the aliens had never heard of. Weapons were openly displayed on her uniform. Not ceremonial pieces like the aliens wore, but functional combat equipment designed for serious warfare. Her sidearm alone looked more advanced than most alien military technology, but it was her bearing that truly transformed her appearance. The careful diplomat was gone, replaced by someone who moved with the controlled precision of a trained killer. Every step was calculated, every gesture economical and purposeful. Behind her came the rest of the human delegation, also in their true uniforms. Captain Deho wore the insignia of a Special Forces major. Sergeant Taemin's gear identified him as a combat engineer. The others displayed their real military specializations with quiet pride. The alien delegates stared in shocked silence. This was not what they had expected at all. General Colthon was the first to recover his voice. What is the meaning of this display? We expected diplomats, not soldiers playing dress-up. Hana stopped at the human section of the table but did not sit. Instead, she placed a data pad on the surface and activated its holographic projector. The device was clearly military hardware, far more sophisticated than standard diplomatic equipment. There seems to have been a misunderstanding, she said in a voice that carried new authority. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Colonel Lee Hana, Terran Special Operations Command, Deep Space Reconnaissance Division. The holographic display showed her military record, with most details classified but enough visible to make the aliens uncomfortable. Deep Space Reconnaissance? Hive Queen Zixara's translated voice carried notes of confusion. What does that mean? It means we've been watching you for much longer than you've been watching us, Hana replied simply. She manipulated the holographic controls, and the display changed to show detailed tactical assessments of alien military positions, ship classifications, weapon capabilities, defensive weaknesses, all documented with precision that made the delegates shift nervously in their seats. Every trade negotiation, every diplomatic contact, every seemingly innocent meeting between our species has been an intelligence gathering operation, Hana continued. We know your fleet positions, your communication codes, your supply lines, and your tactical doctrines. Major Deho stepped forward and placed his own datapad on the table. Its display showed real-time tracking of the 47 alien warships surrounding the station. "We've been monitoring your fleet movements since they began 3 weeks ago," he said. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice 47 combat vessels moving into position around a supposedly neutral diplomatic meeting?" The alien delegates looked at each other with growing alarm. Their secret military buildup was not secret at all. General Colthan's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Even if you discovered our preparations, it changes nothing. You have one small transport ship against our entire fleet. Surrender is still your only option." Hana tilted her head slightly, the same gesture she had made during their first meeting. "Is it?" She activated another control on her datapad. The holographic display expanded to show the entire star system, with new contacts appearing throughout the area. "The Terran Defense Fleet has been positioning assets in this region for the past month," she said calmly. "Every merchant vessel, every exploration ship, every routine patrol that passed through this area was actually a military unit using advanced stealth technology." The display showed dozens of new ship icons appearing throughout the system. They had been hidden until now, but were decloaking simultaneously across multiple sectors. "Impossible," breathed the Network Collective representative. "Our sensors would have detected that many ships." "Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect," Hana replied. "Human stealth technology is apparently more advanced than you assumed." Sergeant Tae-min activated a third display showing detailed analysis of alien communication intercepts. "We've been listening to your military chatter for months. We know about your invasion plans, your target lists, and your expected timetables. The 72-hour deadline you gave us?" Communications specialist So Young added. "We've been counting down to it as well. It's the time we needed to complete our preparations." Navigator Jun Ho consulted his own equipment. "Admiral Cho Sang-wook's task force will be in optimal position in approximately 6 hours. The alien delegates were beginning to look genuinely concerned. What they had planned as an easy victory was revealing itself to be something entirely different. "You're bluffing," General Colthan declared, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Humans don't have this level of military capability." Hana's smile was sharp and cold. "General, you spent 2 days mocking our diplomatic uniforms. You assumed that what you saw was what we really were." She gestured to her combat gear. "This is what humans look like when we stop being polite." The conference room fell silent, except for the quiet hum of electronic equipment. The alien delegates were beginning to understand that they had made a serious miscalculation. "The next time you encounter a human in a diplomatic uniform," Hana continued, "remember that we only dress down when we're being courteous. You really don't want to see what happens when we dress up for war." Outside the conference room's windows, the first human warships were becoming visible as they dropped their stealth fields. The aliens' trap had become a trap of their own making. The alien delegates spent several minutes staring at the holographic displays showing human fleet positions throughout the system. The silence in Conference Room Alpha was heavy with tension and growing fear. General Colthan was the first to break the quiet. His voice carried less certainty than before, but still held defiant anger. "Even if your claims are true, you are still outnumbered. 47 ships against whatever handful you have hidden out there." 47 ships, Colonel Hana repeated thoughtfully. "That's an impressive number. Tell me, General, how many of those ships are actually ready for combat right now?" She manipulated her holographic display to zoom in on specific alien vessels. Red warning indicators appeared on several ship icons. Your flagship, for example, the Vextar Dreadnought Bloodscale. Beautiful ship. Unfortunately, it's been experiencing power fluctuations in its main weapon systems for the past 6 hours. General Colthan's scaled face went rigid with shock. "That information is classified. How could you possibly know about internal ship operations?" Major Deho stepped forward with his own datapad. "The Network Collective Cruiser Digital Storm has been having similar problems. Their targeting computers keep experiencing random system crashes." The machine species representative made a sound like static electricity. "Impossible. Our systems are completely secure. And the Hive Queen's assault carrier Swarm Mother has discovered that half of its fighter craft won't start. added communications specialist So Young. Something about contaminated fuel supplies. Hive Queen Zixara's forearms began moving in rapid, agitated patterns. These are lies. You cannot know these things. Lieutenant Minji chose that moment to enter the conference room. She had shed her maintenance worker disguise and now wore the uniform of Terran Intelligence Services. Her rank insignia identified her as a senior intelligence analyst. Actually, we can know these things, she said calmly. I've spent the last week working throughout this station. Maintenance access gives you wonderful opportunities to install monitoring equipment. She activated her own holographic projector, showing a detailed schematic of the station's internal systems. Every communication you've sent to your fleets has been intercepted and decoded. Every supply shipment to your vessels has been monitored. Every technical repair request has been documented. The display showed dozens of tiny monitoring devices installed throughout the station's infrastructure. They had been completely undetectable to standard security sweeps. More importantly, Minji continued, every supply run to your ships has included some special additions from our technical team. She changed the display to show the internal systems of various alien vessels. Multiple components were highlighted in red, indicating compromised equipment. Computer viruses designed specifically for each species' technology. Fuel additives that cause engine problems. Software patches that introduce random system failures. We've been very busy. The alien delegate stared at the evidence of systematic sabotage with growing horror. This is an act of war, General Colthon snarled. No, Colonel Hanna said firmly. This is a response to an act of war. You brought 47 warships to what was supposed to be a diplomatic meeting. You jammed our communications. You threatened to attack our colonies and our homeworld. We simply prepared accordingly. She activated her communication system, which connected directly to the human fleet now decloaking throughout the system. Admiral Cho, this is Colonel Hanna. Please provide our guests with a demonstration of human military capability. Acknowledged, Colonel. Beginning demonstration now. Through the conference room's large windows, the assembled delegates could see space beginning to fill with human warships. They appeared gradually as their stealth systems deactivated, revealing the true scope of the Terran Defense Fleet presence. The human ships were different from anything the aliens had seen before. Their designs were sleek and predatory, with weapon systems that looked both elegant and deadly. Advanced sensor arrays rotated constantly, tracking every movement in the system. 63 combat vessels, Admiral Cho's voice announced over the communication system, including 12 heavy cruisers, 24 destroyers, 18 frigates, and 9 support ships, all at full combat readiness. The alien delegates watched their overwhelming numerical advantage evaporate. Worse, their own ships were experiencing the technical problems that human sabotage had created. This is still not over, Hive Queen Zixara declared, though her translated voice lacked conviction. Our ships may be damaged, but we can still fight. Can you? Colonel Hanna asked mildly. On cue, several alien vessels began experiencing visible problems. Navigation lights flickered on the Vextar flagship. The network collective cruiser started spinning slowly as its maneuvering thrusters malfunctioned. Multiple hive ships began venting atmosphere from their fighter bays. What have you done to our fleets? Demanded one of the other alien delegates. We've given you a choice, Hanna replied. You can try to fight with damaged ships and compromised systems, or you can listen to revised terms for our negotiations. The human fleet had formed a perfect tactical formation around the alien vessels. Every ship was positioned to provide maximum firepower coverage while maintaining defensive coordination. It was a textbook example of superior military planning and execution. Your fleet is trapped, Major Deho observed. Our ships have superior positioning, better technology, and the advantage of surprise. Your vessels are experiencing multiple system failures. Logic suggests that combat would be extremely unfavorable for your forces. General Colthon looked around the conference room at his fellow delegates. All of them showed signs of fear or uncertainty. Their grand plan to intimidate humanity had collapsed completely. What are your terms? He asked reluctantly. Colonel Hanna smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. First, immediate cessation of all hostile activities against human space. Second, reparations for this unprovoked military buildup and attempted intimidation. Third, new trade agreements that reflect the actual balance of power in this region of space. And if we refuse? Asked the network collective representative. Hana gestured toward the windows where human warships continued their tactical maneuvers around the disabled alien fleet. Then you'll discover why humanity has survived and prospered despite being surrounded by hostile neighbors. We don't start fights, but we certainly know how to finish them. The demonstration was complete. The aliens had learned exactly what happened when they mistook human restraint for human weakness. Outside the station, Admiral Cho's fleet maintained perfect formation, waiting for orders. The trap had been sprung, and the hunters had become the hunted. 3 hours later, the atmosphere in Conference Room Alpha had changed completely. The alien delegates sat quietly at the table, their earlier arrogance replaced by careful attention to every word being spoken. Outside the windows, human warships maintained their tactical positions around the disabled alien fleet. Colonel Hana stood at the head of the table, still wearing her full military uniform. The holographic displays now showed detailed breakdowns of reparations, territorial adjustments, and new trade agreements. Every term heavily favored human interests. Article 7, she read from the formal document that Major Deho had prepared. The Galactic Council will provide immediate compensation for the resources expended in responding to this unprovoked military action. This includes fuel costs, ammunition expenditure, and personnel overtime for 63 Terran Defense Fleet vessels. General Colthon's scaled hands clenched on the table surface, but he said nothing. His flagship was still experiencing power fluctuations, and 3 of his escort ships had lost maneuvering capability entirely. Article 8, Hana continued. All alien military vessels will immediately withdraw to positions at least 5 light-years from any human colony or installation. Future military exercises in proximity to human space require advance notification and approval. This is humiliating, muttered one of the Grove Tender representatives. We came here as conquerors, and now we must pay tribute. You came here as would-be conquerors, Lieutenant Minji corrected from her position at the intelligence station. The difference is significant. Hive Queen Zixara's forearms moved in patterns that her translation system identified as extreme frustration. These terms are completely one-sided. What assurance do we have that humans will honor their commitments? Colonel Hana activated a new holographic display showing the current tactical situation. Human ships surrounded every alien vessel in perfect attack formations. The same assurance you plan to give us, she replied simply. Superior firepower. Communications specialist So Young looked up from her monitoring station. Admiral Cho reports that the alien fleet is now completely under our tactical control. All disabled systems are confirmed. No hostile vessels remain combat-capable. Excellent, Hana said. General Colthon, do you wish to continue negotiations, or shall we proceed to more direct methods of conflict resolution? The Vextar general studied the tactical display for several long minutes. His military experience told him exactly how hopeless his situation had become. 47 ships reduced to helpless targets by human technical superiority and planning. We will accept the terms, he said finally. But this arrangement cannot last forever. Eventually, the balance of power may shift. It might, Hana agreed. And when that day comes, we'll be ready for it. The difference between our species, General, is that humans plan for every contingency. You prepared for easy victory. We prepared for actual war. She gestured to Navigator Junho, who began transmitting the formal agreements to all alien vessels and their home governments. Article 12, she continued reading. Establishment of permanent human observation posts at key, strategic locations throughout this sector. These posts will monitor compliance with all treaty provisions. Observation posts? The network collective representative's mechanical voice carried overtones of indignation. You mean spy bases? I mean exactly what I said, Hana replied. Observation posts. If you prefer to think of them as reminders of what happens when you threaten human space, that's your choice. Sergeant Taemin activated his engineering displays, showing detailed technical specifications for the proposed installations. They were clearly designed for both observation and defense, with weapon systems that could protect human interests throughout the region. These terms will bankrupt several of our civilizations, protested one of the smaller species' representatives. Perhaps you should have considered that before planning an unprovoked invasion, Major Deho observed. Actions have consequences. Today you're learning what those consequences look like. The formal signing ceremony took another 2 hours. Each alien delegate had to personally acknowledge the terms and transmit acceptance codes to their home governments. Several tried to negotiate minor adjustments, but Colonel Hana remained inflexible. These terms are final, she stated repeatedly. Accept them as written, or face the military consequences of refusal. When the last signature was recorded, Hana finally allowed herself to relax slightly. The mission was complete. Humanity had turned an attempted ambush into a decisive victory, without firing a single shot. One final matter, she said as the alien delegates prepared to leave. You spent considerable time yesterday mocking human diplomatic uniforms. You found our appearance amusing and dismissed our capabilities based on what you saw. She gestured to her military gear, then to the plain Navy uniform hanging on a nearby chair. Let this be a lesson that applies beyond our species. Never assume that what someone shows you is all they are. The diplomatic uniform wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a courtesy. We were giving you the opportunity to resolve this situation peacefully. General Colthan paused at the conference room doors. And if we had accepted your original diplomatic approach? Then we would have remained diplomats, Hana replied. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual cooperation. All the things we originally came here to discuss. Unfortunately, you chose a different path. The Vextar general nodded slowly. A costly mistake. Very costly, Hana agreed. But educational. As the alien delegates filed out of the conference room, each looking thoroughly defeated, Captain Deho approached his commander. When did you first know this would happen? He asked quietly. Hana smiled. The same calm expression she had worn since their arrival at the station. The moment they mocked the uniform, they told us exactly who they were and what they intended. We simply returned the favor. She began powering down the holographic displays and packing away her equipment. The theatrical part of the operation was over. Will this really keep them from trying again? Lieutenant Minji asked. For a while, Hana replied. Eventually they'll forget this lesson and need to learn it again. When that happens, we'll be ready. Through the conference room windows, the human fleet began forming up for departure. Admiral Cho had maintained perfect discipline throughout the operation, demonstrating the same professional competence that had made their victory possible. The alien warships, still experiencing various technical difficulties, began limping toward the system's edge. Their grand invasion had ended before it began, and they would return home as defeated supplicants rather than victorious conquerors. Colonel Hana packed her diplomatic uniform carefully in its storage case. She might need it again someday, when humanity once again chose to show courtesy to potential enemies. But now the galaxy knew that human restraint was a choice, not a weakness, and choices could always be changed. The uniform had served its purpose perfectly. The next time aliens saw a human in diplomatic dress, they would remember what lay beneath that polite facade. They would remember the day they learned what humans looked like when they stopped pretending to be harmless.